Crime Macho was very disappointing. Before I get into my review of this movie, consider this your spoiler warning because I will be talking spoiler-ish things. So basically, we have a good old cowboy story that did very little cowboying and a lot of being all over the place. So we get introduced to Mike, and he used to be like one of those bucking bronco kind of a cowboy, you know, that rode those broncos that jump up and down that you see in many movies, or if you have an idea of the Wild West. I'm trying to remember. I think it's Boise State college football team has a cowboy on top of a bucking bronco. So basically what he does, and now obviously, and he's played by Clint Eastwood, and now he's obviously in his old age, and he is like some kind of horse whisperer and just loves animals. Like, and they even make a fun little joke about it, about the Doolittle. He's like Doolittle, but the cowboy version. So we get introduced to his boss that's helped him out, and he's off the bat, his boss is just unlikable, and really early on he gets fired. You know, Clint gets fired, and in the next scene he shows up again and is asking for a favor about his son in Mexico, and he needs, you know, Mike to go over to Mexico and kind of get his son and bring him back. And then Mike's off in this journey because he owes him as a favor, because he let him live rent free, and you know, just the way off the wall favor that you need to go out of your way to repay. So then he goes to Mexico, and we get introduced to Mike's boss's son, which is the co-star of this movie, and Rafa. And those two are basically the main stars, and he's the first kid that's living in the hard streets of Mexico City. And both parents, both Howard and Letta, I think it's the name, just basically use their son as a pawn to get the upper hand in the divorce and get what they want from each other's relationship. Now Howard, Rafa's dad, hasn't seen him since he was a little boy, and he wants him back for he could have leverage and of some property that he signed off to his ex-wife, and he needs him back, and he wants just Rafa or Mike to get Rafa and bring him back to his dad, so he kind of has some leverage in this. So that's basically what seems to be the plot, but again, like I said in the beginning, it goes all over the place. It's more about a story of starting over, especially for Clint Eastwood's character and for Rafa's character. Rafa going from Mexico to be with his dad in the United States, and for Mike or Clint Eastwood, if you will, for him to find love again. And that whole part, I mean, Clint is not a spring chicken. He's not young in any shape, way, or form. And he is just way too old for this role. There was some two beautiful women in this one. One being Lita, a beautiful Mexican actress, and the other one, Marta, played by another gorgeous, beautiful older Mexican actress. And they were both like, you know, struck in love with Eastwood's character, and it's just too creepy, too unbelievable. I'm not saying it can't happen, but in the way when you see it, you're like, oh, come on, really? He's just that sex symbol. And I don't know. I know it was written and produced and directed by Clint, so maybe he was like, this might be my only opportunity to be the leading man. And it was just so painful to watch him walk around and try to pretend like he was fighting and some kind of defender of Rafa, because at any point you think like these guys could just take him, shoot him. It's just the plot devices that they do to make his character look like if he was in his 40s or even in his 50s. They just go out of their way. Like, he's losing hair, he looks so fragile, he walks like a grandpa. It's sad to see, but I don't understand why he just couldn't, direct it and produced this movie and gotten someone else with the body build for that role to be a little bit more in tune with the two women, the two, well, one is the love interest, the other one, she just kind of loves old guys or whatever, which maybe it's just, ageism, and we can't be ageism, like it can't be sexism, so that, we have to be tolerant of this stuff. And I watched the movie from the beginning to the end, but it was too much. Like, Clint wrote himself as a sex symbol, and you're like, get the hell out of here. And why Howard would ask what is Clint now, 80 something years old? I'm not positive, maybe even 90 now. I mean, he's 91, I think. And for him to be in this role like a coyote that has any strength or anything, I mean, come on. I mean, again, maybe this was his last chance to be in that role and he just wanted to take it on. And you know what? He has the money, the power to do it. Hats off to him for writing himself in that kind of role. But this movie was a complete miss. It was just boring. It was bad acting, bad script, Rafa's bad Mexican accent that kept on going back and forth. The pacing was horrible. This movie was hard to watch. And as a Clint Eastwood fan, watching him in this kind of a role was very painful, was very not what you're used to, even with $1 Million Baby or other movies in his older age. And I know those movies probably were 10 years ago. So from 91 to 80 is a big difference. I mean, we've seen what an 80-year-old around with our politicians, I think Trump was in his 70s and Biden is in his 80s, but it was just hard to watch. So for me, this movie was a D-. And the reason it's not an F plus or just a flat out F is because at least the cinematography was okay, and they show you a little bit of the rural Mexican life and how beautiful the Mexican landscape is. And some of the shots and with the horses, I'm a sucker for that kind of stuff, and I enjoyed seeing that. But when you watch this, you'll know what I'm talking about. It's very painful to get through, and even though it's an hour and 43 minutes around there, it feels like 3. And that's not good when a movie feels longer than it should be. And this movie could have been an hour and 20 minutes and it would have been too long. 45 minutes would have been too long. It's just a complete miss. But maybe it was for his ego. Maybe it was for himself. He knows his time on earth is limited, so he wanted to write himself in that kind of a role. And you know what? Kudos to him. But anyways, those are just my thoughts. I would love to hear your thoughts down in the comments. And like always, that's a wrap.